Well, it's been an exciting campaign so far, I have to say. The Conservative Party is polling better in the polls than I thought they would. The Liberals are having a rougher ride than I thought they would. And an interesting part of the story is that the People's Party of Canada, Maxime Bernier's party, is doing much better than the polls would have suggested. And of course, then there's the Maverick Party out west. It's a very interesting race. Rebel News is doing our best to cover it from around the country, flying around, running around. Sometimes we have great conversations with candidates. Here's a quick clip of David Menzies talking to Kostas Menegakis, a Conservative candidate, once an MP who hopes to be again. Just a quick snip of that.
When we see somebody is trying to sort of manipulate the system for their own personal electoral advantage, people see through that. And I believe that's what happened in Nova Scotia. There was no need to call that election, and there's no need to call this federal election now either. To call an election just so you can secure your spot for the next 4 years because you think you're going to get a majority is unfair to Canadians. It's an expensive process. It's at the wrong time. People are coming out of the pandemic now. We want to bring back optimism and ensure that people get back to work and back to a semblance of normal life. Instead, we're embroiled in the middle of an election that nobody wants.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, that might just cost Justin Trudeau. I think even if he gets the status quo, a Liberal minority government, that is in a sense a failure, is it not?
No, absolutely.
Kostas is a good guy, and that's David's turf. Sometimes, though, Conservative MPs start to talk to us, but when they realize our reporters are rebels, they run away. Here's a Quebec lieutenant for Aaron O'Toole panicking when he realizes he's talking to Alexa Lavoie, our Quebec-based rebel.
Vous étiez ici pour...
On avait l'annonce de monsieur O'Toole.
Oui, je sais. Oui, M. O'Toole était là.
Mais vous êtes...
De Rebel News.
Non, c'est beau, merci.
Pourquoi?
Non, c'est correct, merci.
Mais pourquoi pas?
Vous avez une conférence de presse. Si vous voulez faire un point de presse, vous allez être là aussi. On fait notre travail, nous autres.
Je sais, mais en même temps, c'est n'importe quel média qui devrait être accepté. Vous ne devriez pas choisir les médias qui prennent les questions, monsieur.
Well, the Conservatives have a love and hate affair with us. I suppose it's mutual. But one quality guy, one of our favorite guests on the program, who has had great access to the Conservative campaign and just spent a week on their campaign buses and planes, and in fact had some chances to put questions to Aaron O'Toole himself, is our friend Andrew Lawton, who joins us now via Skype from his home in London, Ontario. Well, you've been jetting around with Aaron O'Toole. How's it been? Has it been fun? Has it been exciting?
Yeah, it's certainly been busy. I mean, I should be grateful. I know in the 2019 pre-COVID era of media coverage of campaigns, what had happened was they were sometimes doing 5-6 events a day. So thankfully, it wasn't that busy, but we were moving a bit around over the weekend. We were in Atlantic Canada, Quebec, Ontario, so did a fair bit, and a combination of these very sort of controlled small announcements and press conferences, and a couple of, they call them supporter events. They're sort of the modern version of what one would say is a rally, but with a much smaller crowd. But yeah, there was a good combination of them over the last few days.
Yeah, it's very sad when you think about it. I mean, sometimes big rallies were not just a chance to speak to hundreds or even thousands of people, but they were a real spirit-building event. I mean, if you're at an event with thousands of like-minded people all enthused together, it really gets seared into your memory. I think of Donald Trump's 10, 20, 30, 40,000 person rallies in his campaign. There's a real electrifying effect on the community. It's sort of pitiful when you have little events, but frankly, the events that have been the most newsworthy out there, this has come as an interesting revelation to me, Andrew. Justin Trudeau can't go anywhere without being booed and heckled. That feels new or different. I mean, it's not the first time politicians have been heckled, but Trudeau's used to a loving crowd, isn't he?
Yeah, I remember trying to cover the 2019 election, and as you may remember, it was a bit difficult because I had been banned by the Liberals from doing it in any official capacity, but still, I'd go on the road and try to cover, and Justin Trudeau had a very electrifying quality about him, and a lot of people on the right may not agree with this or want to agree with it. There was no denying it on the ground that he had that celebrity complex where even, especially with young people in Hamilton, Burnaby, Montreal, they would really just flock and fawn and get their selfies and get their picture beside the Trudeau bus and the Prime Minister, the Liberal leader himself. And this time that just isn't there. And you know, there have been a couple of events where he's been able to have a rally-like crowd packed into a restaurant or whatever. But you're right. I mean, very much there's a large crowd, but a lot of them are there to boo and heckle and protest. And that is very different. And, you know, I couldn't remember. Now, granted, I haven't been following the Liberals full time because I have been embedded with the Conservatives for the last week. But the clips that I was seeing of Justin Trudeau's press conferences, in every one of them, you can hear that chanting in the background.
Yeah. I mean, some of them include swearing, and I don't think that's the most polite way to be. But I think the ability to heckle politicians and, frankly, to swear at them, I mean, I'm not prescribing it, but neither would I ban it. That comes as a shock to the media who have never heard the precious one referred to that way. I think it's 18 months of pent-up political talkback that no one had a chance to speak back to power. Parliament wasn't really sitting. The media were more as stenographers than anything. The opposition parties weren't really opposing. I think this is people having 18 months worth of frustration and anger and dissent. And if they want to swear, you know what? I'm not going to get too panicked about it, whereas the media is all clutching their pearls. Some of them are implying it's violence to heckle the Prime Minister. No, it's not. In fact, it's enshrined in our Constitution, Section 2B, isn't it?
This is a big problem that I have with a lot of the discourse around this. There are two types of displays. There are, by and large, the protest, the people that are out there as they have a right to, and then a very, very, very small subset that I would say has crossed the line. You know, people who have very violent rhetoric or violent imagery on a sign. And you know what? Those people, I think, are not doing themselves any favors if they think that is a way to protest and make a point. But there is this problem here of the peaceful protesters who make up the majority being lumped in with those who are in the minority. And I think it's very, very much in poor form to do that. And in fact, the political left has been saying that whenever anyone tries to point out radicalism, rioting and looting and Black Lives Matter rallies, they say, oh, no, you can't let them speak for the majority. But I mean, that same courtesy doesn't seem to be extended the other way. Listen, I mean, I've always been an opponent of no platforming, of deplatforming. My view is that you shouldn't use your right to free speech to shut down someone else. So if the idea is to drown someone out so they can't speak, I'm not a fan of that. But if people are trying to say, we're here, we have all of these issues, and these are not being heard, these are not being addressed, that is absolutely a protected form of free speech. And for Justin Trudeau to launch this campaign saying this is about Canadians being heard, well, this is Canadians being heard.
We're in a very important Canadian election, and I want everyone to see our premium shows that are normally behind a paywall. So during the election, anyone can get free access to our special premium shows, my nightly show, a weekly show by Sheila Gunn Reid and David Menzies and Andrew Chapados, by going to rebelnewsplus.com and using the promo code ELECTION, and you'll see the good stuff for free. Go to rebelnewsplus.com and use promo code ELECTION.